We're in Perek Chaf, Mishkal HaChasidus, and we're almost at the bottom of page Kuf Yud. We discussed yesterday, a brief shir, not yesterday, 2 days ago. We discussed Tochacha, giving people Tochacha. And that when Tochacha is given, so, it's something that a person might consider to be an act of Chasidus, that he's stepping forward. It's not technically an act of Chasidus in the sense that you're mechuyev to give Tochacha. It's a pasuk in Parashas Kedoshim that it says Eicheach Teichiach es Am Yisrael. It says that you should rebuke. It says that you should give Tochacha. But in the sense of that, when a person is doing that, when a person is giving someone Tochacha, he feels like he's doing something that this is what Hashem wants me to do. Hashem wants me to tell you that you're doing something wrong. And oftentimes, a person chooses to do that at a time that it won't be successful. And when a person gives Tochacha at a time that it's not successful, it violates what the Torah wants, because Chazal tell us, Kishem shemitzvah loymar davar anishma, kach mitzvah shaloi loymar she'eino nishma. Just like it's a mitzvah to say something that will be heard, it's a mitzvah not to say something that won't be heard. In other words, this is a logical thing, that if you're not ready to hear something from me, and I say it to you, I've ruined it. And then it will be harder to say it when you are ready. So that's why a person has to be very, very careful with Tochacha to make sure to say it at the right times. You find this a lot, to wait till the right time to say something. In Mirz Hashem, when you have children, you'll hopefully develop the sophistication that you don't just criticize your child whenever you see something to criticize. You wait until such a time that you feel like the insight that you have or the musar that you have is able to be niskabel, it's able to be heard, it's able to be absorbed, and that could be a year later, that could be, and the person has to restrain themselves. And the truth is that what's behind this whole nekuda here is really figuring out why you're giving Tochacha. Sometimes, you ever have this? You ever have that a random person just comes over and tells you you're doing something wrong? Well, so we get naturally defensive when people do that, right? But the truth is that really depends what the person's intention was. Sometimes you could have a person who really, really, really just wants to make kavod shamayim. He wants to bring honor to Hashem. And if he feels like you're doing something wrong, he's telling you respectfully, lovingly, but he wants you to be a part of the world of kavod shamayim. Okay, admittedly, it doesn't happen that often that way, but it does happen, and it takes a certain strength. It takes a certain strength and a certain humility to accept that musar. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's interesting that for me, I remember different times that I got musar that was uncomfortable for me to take. And I feel like I learned from them. I remember two in particular that happened years ago, but they stand out in my mind when I think about Tochacha. One of them was from my father, and one of them was from a random person in a shul in Brooklyn. Okay? The reason why it stands out from my father, once I got married, very rarely gave me any Tochacha. But there was one time, it was the most gentle thing. There was one time that I had attended a wedding in Eretz Yisrael of a very, very close friend. And my Rosh Hashiva was there. And my Rosh Hashiva, unfortunately, doesn't have children of his own. So his Talmidim are like his children. That's his nachas. And my friend was a very, very, very close Talmid. And I watched my Rosh Hashiva dancing by my friend's wedding, and I was amazed by how joyful he looked. And back in the day, we used to write faxes. There were no, we weren't emailing so much. We weren't, we would write faxes to America. I remember faxing a little letter to my father, saying to him, "Who knows if I'll ever see the Rosh Hashiva so happy again?" And there's nothing wrong with writing that. It's not a bad thing to write. My father very gently wrote me back and said, "Perhaps you could have written, I hope one day I see the Rosh Hashiva this happy again." Isn't that smart? It was a good Tochacha. I felt a little embarrassed the first second I read it. I was like, he's right, no? He's right. Okay, he's right. Shifted something.
What was the difference?
What?
What was the difference?
One is like almost closing the door. Like, I don't think I'll see him that happy again. The other one is being hopeful for him and davening for him that he should experience that joy again. It's a different world. Then there was a very interesting thing. Now this I haven't fully implemented it, but I 99% implemented this musar. I was in Brooklyn. My mother-in-law at the time, my father-in-law had passed away. My mother-in-law was still living in Brooklyn at the time. Remember Brooklyn? And I had gone, it was during the week one day, I don't remember what the occasion was. We had gone to Brooklyn and we were visiting my mother-in-law. And it was time for mincha, so there was a shul on the corner. I went to the corner shul and I went to daven mincha and I saw a guy there who lives in the neighborhood, and he came over to me and he's like, how come you never come for Shabbos? Like, your mother-in-law's living here alone. Why don't you ever come for Shabbos? Now, my wife is one of 11 siblings. They didn't let her mother live, have Shabbos on, and my mother-in-law comes to me for Shabbos all the time. But we hadn't been in town for Shabbos in a very long time, and I said the reason is because I work on Shabbos. Right? I have a shul. I can't get out, so I come during the week. Reasonable, right? But this guy said, listen, I want to tell you something. He wasn't giving me mussar about my mother-in-law. He was good with that. He didn't like that I used the words, I work on Shabbos. He says, Klal Yisrael's Meiser Nefesh not to work on Shabbos. I know you're being cute. I know you mean you're a Rav and you give speeches on Shabbos. I know that's what you mean. But the words, I work on Shabbos, don't sound that way. And even though I know what you mean, and everyone would know what you mean, but a Jew should never say the words, I work on Shabbos. I thought that was a good sensitivity. I heard that. I kind of liked saying I work on Shabbos for the shock value. It was fun for me. I realized that you can hear the sensitivity, Don't say you work on Shabbos, You could say I have responsibilities on Shabbos. That's a nicer way to say it. Don't say I work on Shabbos. We don't work on Shabbos. So that was another musar that I got that, I was tempted to be like, okay, I don't think this is your business. I was tempted to do that because it really wasn't his business. Well, the Maisa, he gave me musar, he was right, and I changed the way I talk. Mostly. Sometimes it falls out of my mouth anyway, that I work on Shabbos, but I try not to. I try not to say it. In any event, when we're giving musar, we have to be careful to know why we're giving the musar. And this is negeya also when we give musar to our kids. I'm not talking about when you have adult children. When you give musar to adult children, it's usually more thought out because they can reject it and resent you, and you don't want that. It's when you have a 10-year-old, that's when some parents just like it just drips out, criticism. A kid is by the Shabbos table and he's going like this. And it's annoying. You're like, stop annoying me. Right? It's just like, bumps, it just goes there, a kid is, your kid is davening next to you in shul and he's spacing out. You're like, look inside. Like, it's just natural. Like, there's like, try to, rebuke the child. Rabbi Sonnenschein, there's a name for that. It's called murder. Okay? That is not how to raise children. Especially if the reason you're telling the child to stop doing something is because you're annoyed. Who said that means that you should be giving a rebuke to your child? I often find myself like clenching my fist out of annoyance from something, but I'm not willing to tell my child to stop if it's not the right thing to do to tell them to stop. My kids know I'm actually very sensitive to banging. Like by the Shabbos table, or if I'm talking and someone's like playing with something, you know what I mean? I'm sensitive to it. It gets on my nerves. I'm like sensory that way. It gets on my nerves. My kids know that, and now I go like a much more gentle thing. Like if while I'm talking to someone, I'll see one of my kids is like, clinging their glass or something like little kids do. I'll go like that. And my kids know what that means. But I try very hard. I have this thing like, nowadays everyone likes to drum while they're singing. So there was a tkufa, especially when my boys are home, they're drumming away while they're singing. I hate it. Okay? Now, I don't hate it when I'm drumming, by the way. There's something about when other people do it that's annoying. Okay? Which is, but I never stop them. Never. Your children are singing Zmiras by the Shabbos table. Don't stop them. It's annoying you? Too bad. They're singing Zmiras by the Shabbos table. That's great. Don't annoy them. Don't stop them. And even when we correct our children for doing things wrong, but where is it coming from? Is it coming from my annoyance, my impatience? Is it coming because I feel disrespected that you're doing something I don't hold of? Is it coming out of habit? Is it coming just because I am ashamed that you're falling asleep on the table in shul and my friends are seeing my son asleep by the table? Because every single one of the things I just said are not valid reasons to give Tochacha. We give Tochacha to our children because it's our job to teach them, and we want to effectively teach them to be independent, healthy servants of Hashem in the next generation. That's when we give Tochacha. That's when we step in, and that's how we have to. That's how we have to do it. I'll tell you one or two little chinuch things, just interesting. I have this thing with my kids that when they're not nice to each other, this week, a few days ago, my son walked into the house, and it was freezing outside. And he left the door open. And my daughter was sitting in the living room, and she's like, "What's the matter with you? Could you please..." No, she didn't say please. She said in some 12-year-old way, to go back and shut the door. And I didn't give her musar. I just repeated it. I said, "Hindi, Shlomo, would you mind getting the door?" And she looked at me, she smiled, and she moved on. There were no ramifications, no repercussions. I wasn't in a bad mood. I didn't speak down to her. I just kind of said what she said in the way that I think would be nicer to say it. And then I moved on. Because chinuch does not mean to punish. God punishes. Parents educate. Now sometimes we do certain consequences and so on with the intention of educating. But it's not, what do you do? The purpose is to teach. That's all. I often tell parents, even if kids look like they're not getting it at all, do the teaching. Do the teaching, that's all. I didn't wait for my daughter to say, "Oh, I'm sorry," or "You hear what I'm saying? You hear what I'm saying? Answer me." No, nothing. I just said my thing. She gave her a little smile. She heard me. We moved on. Was the lesson taught? Of course it was taught. Will it affect her moving forward as she grows up? Of course it will. Do I have to be able to check a box that I changed her life today? Life is not like that. I want to tell you something else. Have you ever seen parents with young children saying, they'll give their child a drink and be like, "Say thank you, say thank you." And kids don't like that. Did you know that? So they shrug their shoulder, or they're like, "I'm not going to give it to you if you don't say thank you. Say thank you. Say thank you." And finally the kid goes, "Thank you." What a great education. What is that? So I have a different plan. You'll use this. Remember this. You'll use this with your kids, okay? When I give my kids something, I want to teach them to say thank you. My kids are older now, but back in the day, is that your coffee? Can I have it? So I'll take the drink, and I'll say, "Thank you, Tati." I say it. And sometimes they'll say it with me, and sometimes they won't. Did I teach something? Yes. Did I make it awkward, uncomfortable, confrontational, or transactional, which is the worst? No. I want to teach you to say thank you. So when I give you something, I kind of, "Thank you, Tati," sometimes my kids would even make jokes, like, "You thanking yourself?" But they get it. They get it. Now I see them doing it with their kids. So the chinuch worked. Better than I expected. So, but that's learning the art of Tochacha. Okay, let's learn another example here. Re'ei Pashatu. He says, look, take a look at this. It's obvious. Sheroi l'kol adam. Liyos makdim v'rotz lidvar mitzvah. It's of course it's pashut. A person should be early and should hurry to do mitzvahs. That's perfect, right? Obviously. Ulehishdada liyos min ha'oiskim ba. You want to be involved. There's a mitzvah to do. You want to be one of the people to do it. That makes sense. That's chasidus. You want to serve Hashem. But sometimes an argument can come from that. Sheyoser tisbaze ha-mitzvah, and the mitzvah has a greater bizayon. V'yischalel bo shem shamayim, and there'll be more of a chilul Hashem b'ma sheyiskaved. So, if we're putting together a chevra to do something, to do a mitzvah, imagine you have a chevra getting together to be makayim, even like a chevra kadisha, or a chevra getting together to arrange something in a yeshiva, or whatever it is. You want to make a beautiful kiddush. We get a chevra together, so we need 5 guys. 6 guys are interested. If there's a fight over it, that was a kiddush Hashem. Each person wants to be part of the mitzvah. But if there's a fight over it, that's a kiddush Hashem. I want to do it. Imagine you buy a levaya. These things come up. You buy a levaya, so it's a covet to be able to hold the aron, to carry the aron, right? If you've been to levayas, you've seen sometimes to be able to be the ones that carry the aron to the kever, or carry the aron out of the base oilam, unless they wheel the aron. But usually, by the more, by when there's been a Torah there, they want to actually carry it in a bigger cover. Okay, so sometimes when it's a very big gadol, so everybody wants this chus to carry it. So that's a covet for the gadol that they're fighting under his aron for who's going to hold him. That's a covet for him. Of course not. It's a bizayon. What are they fighting? If it would be covered, if the people that are there could just do it and not be deterred, and not be pushed, and not be shoved. When you see people shoving by an event, that adds covet. That's what he says. B'kayotze bozed, cases like this, vaday shechayev hachosid la'aniach hamitzvah. It's certain that the chassid is obligated to let the mitzvah go, put it down, v'loy lirdoif achareha, and not to chase after it. And that's what happened when it came to holding the kelim in the Beis Hamikdash. That's what Chazal say b'inyan halavim. Zelishaynam. This is what the Medrash says. They knew that whoever holds the Aron HaKodesh, that's the greatest schar, right? That, you imagine? You get to hold the Aron. So therefore, nobody wanted to carry the shulchan or the menorah or the mizbeach, because everyone wanted to carry the Aron, because it was the biggest covet, it was the biggest schar. V'kulan ratzin la'aron, they all ran to the Aron, lita el schar, to take the schar. Umitoich kacha yozeh meiriv va'omer anitayin kan, v'zeh meiriv va'omer anitayin kan. Each one would say, I'm carrying it here, I'm carrying it here. And the mitoich kacha yonoyigim kalus roish, and that wasn't serious. That's not a seriousness. And that would cause einshim, that would cause the Shechina to react. It's very, very important that Mr. Yossi Sharm is driving home to us how unbelievably important it is that we keep in mind the ramifications of our actions, and even when we're doing something for the right reasons, that we make sure that the way that we're doing it is the right way, and that this is the way that brings out the maximum of Kavod Shamayim. Okay, we'll stop here.